Everybody, live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram. That looks like all systems go here on the new iPad setup. See my comments. I think we're good. Should we do a show? Welcome, everybody. April 14th. Let me get this a little bit straight here. April 14th, episode 342. Welcome to the Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. Did you see did you see this just helicopter drop from the sky in New York into the Hudson? It was horrifying. Horrifying if you haven't seen the clip of that. Don't go watch it. It was just disgusting. So I used to have a flat, an apartment in Manhattan on the south end of the island by Pace University at the Brooklyn Bridge there. And I was 71 floors up. So 71 floors is what, probably 800 plus feet. There were pretty tall ceilings in that building. And the Frank Gehry architected building, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful building. And sound is good on Instagram. Thanks for joining us, Ashley. So I used to have an apartment there, and the views were stunning. 71 floors. I mean, 71 floors. You feel like you're at airplane level. You don't even feel high. You just feel it just feels abstract. Like it doesn't make any sense. And so the views were west and north from that flat, and so it overlooked all of these. I was sort of at the same height as some of these helicopters, and at all times there was just dozens and dozens and dozens of helicopters in the air, and it seemed interesting to me. It seemed pretty cool. I like helicopters. I've been on a lot of them, mostly heli skiing, or more specifically heli snowboarding. Hadn't done the Manhattan tour. I feel like my apartment provided that, but oh my goodness, that was just horrific to see. The Wall Street Journal reports that the company that ran those helicopters had financial difficulties before the six people were killed in the crash. In the last 8 years, the company has been through a bankruptcy, faced ongoing lawsuits over alleged debts, and in January it was sued for $1.4 million by a company that claimed it wasn't paid for a leased chopper. And here's the telltale sign of you're in serious trouble. A cash advance lender, one of these merchant advance cash advance companies, that it's like, oh, send me your bank statements and I'll lend you a percentage of your average deposits every day, and just directly suck money out of your account at an interest rate that, yeah, don't worry about what that interest rate is. Anyways, this helicopter company had blocked the pads, the automatic withdrawals from the accounts, and and the merchant advance cash advance company said it's owed about $83,000 from that. So if you're off borrowing from cash advance companies, and then worse, you put a stop payment on their withdrawals, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. Anyways, prayers for those families. I don't know what else to say about that, but it was personal, because I used to sit there a lot and watch those helicopters zip around, and that was just horrific. Markets. I had not. You know what I should have done was check the markets before I went live here. I did check them about an hour ago as I was preparing, but with the volatility, nope, we're still all green. So we're rallying. We're rallying in markets after a crazy week last week. This is, of course, tied to the tariff delays. So there's a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs, and we're down to a flat 10% on most things. And then there was a reported exemption on Apple electronic products coming out of China, but I don't know. By the way, the 10% reciprocal flat rate is everybody except for China, is what it says. Like the Chinese tariffs are crazy, like 145% in aggregate, something like that. But over the weekend, there was a report that there was an exemption on electronic goods out of China. This morning, Trump said that's not true, but there was some reclassifications. It's intentionally so confusing. No one knows what the hell is going on. But techs rallied, equities are up. Bitcoin crawled out of its depths, and when I was preparing the show, it was at $85,000. Gold is down a little. What does that all mean? It means that we're re-adding some risk. Traders are re-adding a little bit of risk to their portfolio because last week, what they were doing was getting the hell out of everything other than gold. Everybody was getting, like, equities were down, bonds were down, Bitcoin was down, everything was down across, commodities were down, oil was down, everything was down across the board as people got out of risk and went to cash. US dollar was down because international investors were, getting out of the US entirely and going back to wherever they came from. So there's a selling of the currency. But now we're starting to reverse that a little bit. I was looking at the VIX this morning. I never really pay attention to the VIX, of volatility index. And so what this thing does is it measures what they say traders' expectations over the next of volatility, meaning uncertainty, prices up and down over the next 30 days. And they do that by looking at options on the S&P index, I believe. And what you're looking for the VIX is sort of a 20 or less. So a 20% volatility would be, considered in the lower category, although that still sounds a lot to me. And this morning when I was preparing my notes, it was 32.62, which is extreme, but it was down. It was down 13%. Last Wednesday, it was 57.36%. This measure of volatility, which means just the markets in general are saying everything's kind of crazy. So things have settled down a little bit for today, but there will still be a ton of volatility, uncertainty. There's no way that the administration is going to let things calm down and people just breathe and relax. That's not the way this works. This works through chaos, and that is what is going to happen. Last week, as I said, was basically a flight to liquidity. Now people are starting to dip their toes back in, but be careful. Be careful about that. Mandeep, thank you for joining us on Instagram. All right. Meanwhile, in Canada, the election is fast approaching. You U.S. Listeners to this show, of which is about half plus of the audience, will be shocked to know that the Canadian elections are like 4 or 5 weeks, start to finish. It's over, and also we basically all vote on the same day, and then we get our results that night. It's shocking. It's absolutely archaic. You just can't believe that that's the way that it doesn't go for years. You don't have to wait months to get election results. That is new technology when you do that. We are archaic here in Canada. We just get it all over with in about 4 weeks. Well, on the weekend, I believe maybe it was Friday, but a number of prominent business leaders formally threw their support behind Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. I don't know if I pronounced that properly, but I think I got it close. This is from the Wall Street Journal, reporting on Canadian news, but a group of more than 30 current past executives, including Fairfax CEO Prem Watsa, Canaccord, Genuity, which is sort of the mid-market, smaller investment bank for tech in Canada. That CEO, RBC Capital Markets CEO Anthony Fell, former Scotiabank CEO Brian Porter, RioCan Real Estate Investment Trust, Mattamy Homes, Blue Jays president, on and on and on it goes. Number of candidates, let's call them business elite, all prepared a letter showing strong support for Poilievre, and the strongest support that he's seen for the business community yet. They published an open letter in several Canadian newspapers on Saturday saying, there you go, it wasn't Friday, it was Saturday. I thought so. Saying Poilievre's plans are best to get the country's economy back on track. Productivity has stalled, economic growth has slowed, our GDP per capita is shrinking. Nevertheless, this decline is not inevitable, and it's not the Canada we know and love to turn things around. The letter said Canada needs to eliminate barriers to productivity by streamlining permit processes, cutting outdated regulations that prevent investment and job creation. It also needs to go on, it says, to cut spending, impose lower taxes, and develop natural resources by building pipelines, expanding mining and investing in energy. I wonder who told you that 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Let me think. Did anybody mention that? Oh, yeah, it's been like a constant theme on Mornings with Scott here. That's exactly what needs to happen. This would have been good for these business leaders to come out 3-4 weeks ago with this letter. Poilievre is getting crushed in the polls. I think it's starting to turn around a little bit for him, but he's been getting crushed because of because of Trump, because of the tariff war, because of the 51 51st state BS, which is really the big issue here in Canada, is the attack on sovereignty, and so it would have been good for them to come out and tell the Canadian public that Poilievre is the right guy to deal with this stuff, because in the polling he is not. People are turning to Mark Carney, the Liberal leader, because he's a former banker. More on that. So Poilievre has failed to pivot his message, in my view, because what he was doing was he was just rallying against Justin Trudeau, the prime minister. And in Canada, what happens is we do the exact same thing as the US does, but we just do it on a delayed time frame. Sometimes it's a year. Sometimes, most of the time, it's 5 to 7 years. Whatever happened in the US is going to finally happen in Canada. Well, do you remember that Trump was going after Biden, and then they did the hot swap for Harris, and then Harris took the lead in the polls from being significantly behind when it was Biden, and Trump initially was attacking her as being the same as Biden, and it was not working. Well, in Canada, exact same thing. Poilievre was killing Trudeau in the polls. Liberal Party pulls off the hot swap. They bring in the unelected, the chosen one, Mark Carney, to be prime minister, because you can do that in Canada under a parliamentary system. And so he becomes prime minister. And what does Poilievre do? He's attacking Carney as being just like Trudeau. Or just like Justin, I think, was the meme on that. But that was his play, just like they did in the US. And just like in the US, it did not work. What Poilievre needs to do is pivot to a vision, to a plan, to positivity, to why am I the right leader to take Canada to the next level here. That's what the letter from the business leaders has said. That's what Poilievre has failed to do, and they're running out of time. There's 2 weeks left before this before this election. The problem is the whole election, as I said, is only 4 or 5 weeks. So if you recall, it took Trump several months to get a handle on how to deal with Harris. And then when he finally did, and Harris self-destructed, he clobbered her in the election. That would happen in Canada as well, except I'm fearful, all Canadians should be fearful, that we're just going to run out of time. We're just going to run out of time. Canadian Liberal leader Mark Carney has spent much of the election campaign touting his experience as a leader of the central banks in both Canada and England. He argues that that experience leaves him best equipped to address the country's economic woes and tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. Speaking of London bankers, 1 second. Speaking of bankers from London, Wall Street Journal, I like this story. In the spring of 2023, a London banker turned bookmaker reached out to a few contacts with an audacious request. Can you help me take down the Texas lottery? Bernard Martatelli had a plan in mind. He and his partners would buy nearly every possible number in the coming draw. There was 25.8 million potential number combinations, and the tickets were $1 a piece. So they were going to invest $26 million buying every single number in the lottery, and the jackpot was $95 million. Now, if no one else picked it, they would get $95 million, and their profits would be about $60 million, according to this Wall Street Journal article, which went on and on and on. They did a real deep dive into this because it was fun. Of course, if someone else bought the same number, they would have to, they have lower earnings. And over the 3 days, so he flew to the U.S. This Marantelli flew to the U.S. with a few trusted lieutenants, and they shut up shop in a old dentist's office in a warehouse and 2 other spots in Texas. And they worked out a way to buy printing terminals for the tickets, and the trucks hauled in dozens of them and reams of paper. And over 3 days, the machines, manned by a disparate bunch of associates and some of their children, screeched away nearly around the clock, spitting out 100 or more tickets every second. They were printing election tickets. And the Texan politicians later likened this operation to a sweatshop. Trying to pull off the gambit required deep pockets and a knack for staying under the radar. And for that, they turned to a Tasmanian gambler not the Tasmanian gambler, devil, but a Tasmanian gambler who bankrolled the operation. This guy's name is Zeliko, Zelijko. I'm not even going to try his last name, but his nickname is the Joker from Tasmania, and for his ability to pull off capers at far-flung casinos and racetracks. Most of his associates still call him Zelenko because he changed his name, or Z. Never trust a man named Z. That's not true. I know a guy named Z, and he was a good dude. Over the years, this Z and his partners have won hundreds of millions of dollars. Good morning, Ion. Thank you for joining us. Hundreds of millions of dollars by applying Wall Street style analytics on betting opportunities around the world. Like card counters at blackjack tables, they use data and math to hunt for situations ripe for flipping the house edge in their favor. They throw piles of money at it. They gamble around $10 billion annually. The Texas Lottery play, one of their most ambitious operations ever, paid off spectacularly with a $57.8 million jackpot win. That in turn spilled their activities into public views and sparked a Texas-sized uproar over whether other lotto players and indeed the entire state had been hoodwinked. That's a technical legal term for defrauded. Early this month, the state's Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick called the cruise win the biggest theft from the people of Texas in the history of Texas. And of course, the defendants in this, the Tasmanian Z gambler guy and the banker from London, represented by a New Jersey lawyer, said that they followed all applicable laws and rules and regulations. So this reminds me of a painful lesson from my past. No, I was not rigging lotteries. I was not rigging because in my day, the lotteries weren't big enough. I remember it was in the mid 90s. I was in my early mid 30s. I don't remember. I owed so much money. I think it was like $300 million or something. And everybody was abuzz on Bay Street at the Canadian Lottery, or the Ontario Lottery was up to $7 million. And I remember being depressed, drinking martinis, and just thinking to myself, that's just not going to help. It's just not going to help. But the 90 million would help. A bit more of incentive. Why are these lotteries so big? That just it just encourages this type of behavior. But that's not the lesson. The main lesson here is you can, in business and in life, be too tricky for your own good. I've had that experience before with regulators. You can be technically right, but you can end up being wrong anyways because you've pissed off people, because you found a way to game the system. It happens all the time in regulation. It happens in tax. You'll see that with tax shelter products all the time. Not stuff that I do, but you can just see it in the market. Do not be too tricky for your own good. GM, where are we on time? Oh, we're good. GM laid off 500 people last week in Ingersoll. This is in Canada, in southwestern Ontario. Now, we have these auto tariffs back and forth for no particular reason between Canada and the US and vice versa. And so GM laid off 500 people in Ingersoll, and the whole community went nuts. I don't mean the community of Ingersoll. I mean the Canadian press, the US press. This is it. Automotive is getting crushed. Layoffs are going to happen. But what no one told you in that reporting, you can find it if you look deep. But what no one told you is that this, in fact, had nothing to do with tariffs. This was an EV, electric vehicle van facility, and no one is buying EV passenger vans. That's not a thing. I'm not saying zero. I'm not trying to be absolute about it, but really, it's not a thing. General Motors, according to the Globe and Mail, has temporarily halted production of its Bright Drop electric delivery van and plans to cut workers at the Ontario plant when it resumes scaled back output, said the labor union Unifor. On Friday, the Detroit automaker confirmed it's making the operational employment adjustments to balance inventory, which is going on throughout the automotive world. This started before tariffs. I used to make auto parts. I've let go of that company. We're going to talk about that more on future mornings with Scott. But we make auto parts, and the demand is just like half. of what it used to be. So they're doing this to balance inventory and align production schedules with current demand. Prime Minister Mark Carney said earlier in the day that tariff-fueled market turmoil of the past week has led to a market tightening in financial condition and is weighing on Canada's labor market. So he's blaming tariffs. He is blaming tariffs. Now, do you think the globalist, focused, carbon tax, climate change internationalist Mark Carney, do you think he's going to say that no one wants EV vehicles? Do you think that's a possibility? Or is he going to blame something else? You know, it says the economy shed about 33,000 jobs in March. Now, Carney became PM March 9th, so we can't really blame him for that, right? But he was the primary economic advisor to Trudeau, and the Liberals have had 8 years. This had nothing to do with tariffs, but if you think it did have something to do with tariffs, the Liberals had 8 years to prepare for this, to make Canada's economic and security risks to diversify economic and security risks so that we're not selling everything to one customer who doesn't want to buy things from us. And so you have to hold the Liberals accountable, as the letter from all the business leaders basically said. Carney here is just going to lie to you and blame tariffs and blame Trump. He's been handed a gift. The Liberal Party has been handed a gift because it's a free out. It is a free out from everything that they have screwed up over the last 8 years. And Carney was central in that, even though he has never, ever been elected by anyone in his entire life, nor this is the first time he's held elected office, and he did it by being chosen, not by being elected. Speaking of tariffs, we know. So who are tariffs paid by? They are paid by the importer of record. And I don't want to hear some people say, oh, I don't have a customs broker, so I have to pay it myself. Okay, whatever. But for the most part, almost always, it is paid by the importer of record. If you are a US company and you are importing stuff from China, and if the tariff is 145%, you are paying the 145% before you can get your goods out of hawk from the customs duties people. You have to send the money to your customs broker, usually. I don't know if I'm using all the right terms there, but that's basically the way that it works. And so you have to pay that surcharge. You have to pay that tariff. Now, what are you going to do to try to not go bankrupt because you can't afford to pay this 145% tariff? Hey, Aeon's on Instagram as well. Cool. Aeon, you're both on YouTube and Instagram. I like you pumping up the numbers for that. Thank you very much. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go to your Chinese suppliers and go, the tariffs are killing us. We can't afford to buy from you. I want you to lower your price substantially. And remember, we did a story about Walmart doing that, going to his Chinese suppliers, and it was a sufficient enough problem in China that the Chinese government started calling in Walmart executives to interrogate them. Let's put it that way. That it's not right to be passing this on to the Chinese manufacturer. So there's one option, which is tough to do. Another option is to eat it yourself, right? Which reduces your contribution margin. And if you want to, because your cost of materials, your input goods go up the 145%, the portion that comes from China. And so your contribution margin is going to get whacked, and that causes severe problems. So when we talk about how to make more money in a business, any business, number one, improve your contribution margin. Number two, lower your fixed costs. Number three, scale, grow your revenue. Right, that's in the Pathway to Profit Academy. There's a link in the notes to that. The best damn business course on the face of the planet, but it works in reverse as well. You want to lose money, don't deal with your contribution margin shrinkage, which is exactly what tariffs does. And so then your third option is to pass that on to consumers. And the whole idea here, the whole plan of these tariffs is that it causes American consumers to not want to buy stuff that was made in China, but because to avoid the tariff because it's too expensive. And so they want to buy stuff that's made in America instead because it's more price competitive. That's the whole point, right? So you have to, as we all know, we've talked about forever, you have to pass on the pricing to the consumers. Right. And so how do you do that? Do you just increase your price substantially? Well, I've dealt with this issue in companies that we've owned and advised many times over the years. More, we did this tariff issue once before with Trump in his first administration, but also with when energy markets were getting way out of control and our costs were way up. That's happened several times over the decades that I've been active. And a trick that we found is you can't really just increase your price because customers revolt. But what you can do is put a temporary surcharge to customers on your goods. And I want you to think about that. A temporary surcharge. My good is still $10, but there's a $2 surcharge on top of that. So you have to pay 12. Why do I have to pay a $2 surcharge? Energy's way up. We can't afford to deliver. So when the energy goes back down, we'll remove the surcharge. Well, you can put on your goods, I would brand it a Trump tariff, a Trump tariff. According to the Wall Street Journal, an extra fee is showing up on more shopping bills lately, and it carries a not so subtle message. The tariffs were not our idea. Some are a $5 flat fee, while others are 40% of the subtotal. The tactic is a way to pass on at least some of the tariff costs to consumers, especially on Chinese-made goods, while passing the buck to President Trump. We think transparency is the way to go here. I'm giving Trump full credit for his decision to add this tariff to all American consumers, said the chief executive officer of Jolie. I don't know what that is. Sells high-end filter and shower heads. Well, that's what I don't know. So he's adding what he's branded a Trump liberation tariff. Brilliant. Absolutely the right way to do it. Dame, a sexual wellness company which appears to make vibrators. I also don't know about this product or company, as you might imagine. They have a Trump tariff surcharge of $5 to custom orders, and because they make their stuff in China, and the $5 is not enough, but it just makes it clear why there is an extra cost. Here's why I love this. I love this for many reasons. Number one is surcharge is always the way to go. Don't increase your price, increase it like permanently. Now you're paying 12 instead of 10. No, don't do that. You're paying 10, but you're also paying a $2 surcharge. You can, if you're a Trump supporting consumer, and it's called a Trump liberation tariff, you think, oh, well, I'll pay that extra $2 just to support this awesome initiative of Trump to save the country and to be in these tariff wars, and you'll be happy to pay the $2 to do that. And if you're a Trump hater and you think this whole thing is stupid, you by definition are feeling sorry for the company that has been hit with these tariffs, and you may support that $2 surcharge just out of that. It's a win for the company and for the business. So that's what I want you to think about if you're in business. This is a business show, the best damn business show on the face of the earth. So for medium and small businesses, think about that. Don't think about increasing your price. Think about adding a surcharge. And as always, test it out. Don't go big, just test it out a little bit at a time, see how it works for you. I think what you'll find is the politics of this situation is that it will be very, very acceptable. Ion Instagram says, got to get my mind right at the top of the week. Yes, sir, you do. Get your mind right. There was an article last week that I missed because we had technological issues, but I wanted to talk about this because I found it interesting, from the Globe and Mail, maybe from Wall Street Journal as well, but Shopify, the Canadian tech company, where if you go to the link in the notes about the business course, the Pathway for Profit Academy, that is actually, you should check it out. It's a great site. That is the thescottsinclair.com brand, but the link goes to a Shopify site, and and it's done very well on there by my team. So Shopify CEO Toby Lutka, I don't know how to say his name, have mandated that before approving new hires, managers must demonstrate that AI cannot do the job. Okay, so you're not allowed to hire anybody anymore at Shopify unless you can prove that AI isn't able to do the job. Shopify emphasized that the effective use of AI is now a fundamental expectation for all employees. Performance reviews will include assessments of AI utilization, reflecting the importance of AI proficiency in the company's culture. Do not miss out on this, guys. Medium and small businesses, if you're not on AI every day, if you're not on ChatGPT, Grok, those are my two ones these days. I used to use Perplexity a lot, but it has gotten so dumb it is unusable. But certainly Grok and Perplex and Chat GPT. I use these for writing, for research. I almost never Google anything anymore. Their conversation ability. If I'm on a drive and I'm wasting time, I can just I can have a conversation with Grok and do research and ask questions. Um, Says here, Shopify's approach may signal a broader trend in the tech industry, where companies are increasingly evaluating the potential of AI to perform tasks traditionally handled by by humans, potentially reshaping workforce dynamics. Keynote I'm doing a keynote speech. I've been hired, which I'm very excited about, in May in Calgary at a growth conference with an AI focus. I will be speaking about AI use in medium and small businesses there and investing in AI and growing and making more profit in your business in times of chaos. So I just thought that was interesting, just a subtle shot, or maybe not so subtle, to you to start using AI more than you are in your business. Do I have any other comments I need to respond to? I do not believe so. What is our theme, folks? What is our theme for 2025? Anyone? Anyone? Defense wins championships. Be cautious, dot your I's, cross your T's, do your accounting, pay your taxes, all that sort of stuff. That's the kind of world that we are in, right? You should always do that, obviously, but you should pay particular attention to that in 2025. Just like Carney and the Liberals should have paid attention to defense to Canada for the last 8 years, made our economy more efficient, more self reliant. They did not do that. Now Canadians will be paying the price. That's it. That's it. We will talk to you Wednesday. Thank you, everybody, for listening.